Okay, so what if I told you that success, health, and wisdom, what if they weren't things you had to chase after? What if they were just your natural state of being? That's the core of a really powerful idea we're going to unpack in this explainer. This concept that we all have a divine birthright to a perfect and prosperous life. So let's dive right in.
But right away, that brings up a huge, obvious question, right? I mean, if we're all supposedly built for success and health, then why is the world so full of, well, the exact opposite? Why do so many of us go through so much struggle and lack and sickness? It just doesn't add up. And that's the central paradox this whole philosophy is trying to solve.
So, where do we even begin to look for the answer to this puzzle? Well, according to the philosophy we're exploring, we've been looking in all the wrong places. See, the cause of all this suffering, it isn't out there in the world, in our circumstances. No, it's actually much, much closer to home. It's inside our own minds. And this is where it gets really specific. The idea here is that misery isn't just some random bad luck, it's the direct result of what's going on inside of us. It all starts when we latch onto weak thoughts. Then those thoughts get stronger and turn into weak habits. And it just snowballs from there. You add in a lack of concentration, you stop persevering, you lose your courage. But here's the most important part. These aren't things happening to us. They're internal states that, believe it or not, we can actually learn to control.
Okay, so if those are the things causing all the suffering, then get ready for a pretty radical counter idea. This philosophy argues that all that stuff, suffering, poverty, illness, that's not your destiny at all. In fact, it's a complete contradiction of who you really are.
And this chart really just lays it all out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the illusions we get stuck in, the things we think are real: poverty, sickness, misery. But then, on the right, that's our natural state. That's our birthright: success, health, and wisdom. The whole point is, most of us are living in the column on the left, mistaking the illusion for reality when our true potential is right there on the other side. So where does a bold claim like that even come from? This idea of inherent perfection? Well, it all boils down to one single foundational belief. You are made in God's image. The logic is actually pretty straightforward. If your source, your very origin, is perfection, then things like success and health aren't just things you might get, they're already part of you. They're your built-in qualities. And that brings us to a really crucial point. Because if we are inherently perfect, then what in the world is stopping us? According to this teaching, the barrier isn't real. It's not some wall out there in the world. It's a prison, but it's a prison we've built for ourselves, entirely inside our own minds. So what are the bars of this prison made of? Well, it comes down to one single thing: fear. The source is super direct about this. It says our own fearful thoughts literally paralyze our natural ability to succeed. And just think about that word for a second. Paralyze. It means the ability isn't gone. It's still there. It's just frozen, locked up by the thoughts we keep holding on to. So here's the bottom line. The real enemy, the thing we actually have to fight, is what the source calls the delusion of your own limitations. And that word, delusion, is so powerful, isn't it? Because a delusion is just a false belief. It means we're believing a complete lie about ourselves, that we're weak, that we're incapable, that we're limited, when the truth of who we are is the exact opposite. All right, so that brings us to the good part, the solution. Because if the problem is just a delusion, a false belief, then the cure has to be a revelation, right? A powerful moment where you realize the truth. And this is exactly where we learn how to consciously claim what the source calls our divine birthright. So what is this divine birthright exactly? Well, you can think of it as the perfection and prosperity that's already wired into you just for being you. It's yours simply because you exist as a child of God. Now, there is a catch, but it's a simple one. To get access to it, you have to consciously let go of that delusion of limitation we were just talking about. The logic here is actually really beautiful and simple. It's basically an inheritance. If you believe God owns everything, and you're God's child, well, then you have access to everything your father possesses. It's a huge mental shift, you know? It's moving away from thinking you have to earn everything, and instead, just accepting what's already yours by inheritance. Okay, but look. Knowing all this in your head is one thing. Actually living it, making it real in your day-to-day life, that's a whole different ballgame. So this next part is all about the how. How do we turn this big idea from a cool concept into something we actually experience through habit? And we're given a pretty clear 4-step path to follow. First, you just acknowledge that God owns everything. Simple. Second, you realize that you're God's child, that you have a direct connection. Third, you understand that because of that connection, you have access to everything. And finally, and this is the most important part, you start to cultivate the mental habit of feeling like you already possess it all. And honestly, this is the absolute key to making any of this work. This can't just be a thought you have once in a while. It's stressed over and over that this feeling, this deep inner sense of already having everything you need, it has to become a mental habit, a consistent, disciplined habit. It's all about retraining your brain to operate from a place of abundance, not a place of lack.
And that really brings us to the end with a very direct, very personal challenge. The core message here is that the big change you're looking for isn't about fixing the world out there. It's about changing the world inside your own head. The real work isn't for tomorrow, it's for right now. And it all starts with one powerful question for you to think about. What delusion, what false belief about your own limitations are you ready to let go of today?